Presiding Officer, I hope that the new government at Westminster will show greater commitment to climate change, and I will work with ministerial counterparts to achieve progress, but we will not settle on hope alone. This is why, despite the exceptional budgetary pressures on Scotland, in this financial year alone, we are committing £4.7 billion for activities that will positively impact delivery of our climate goals. It's why legislation that is completing its parliamentary passage this week will drive forward climate progress. This includes, of course, the Agriculture and Rural Communities Bill, which passed at Stage 3 yesterday. Scotland's farmers, crofters and land managers already play a critical role in cutting emissions, and this bill will allow them to increase their contribution whilst continuing to produce world-renowned food sustainably. Likewise, the Circular Economy Bill, currently at Stage 3, will provide the legislative framework to develop a circular economy alongside powers to set local recycling targets and a new code of practice for waste and recycling service. This builds on Scotland's strong record in reducing waste emissions, where the total amount of waste going to landfill has nearly halved over the past decade, and the overall recycling rate is at its highest level since records began in 2011. These bills, passing now, demonstrate that the Government is acting now to make the change necessary. But we know continual challenge and progress is what the climate emergency demands of us. And so we are always looking forward, including to the complex matter of heat in buildings. Our new build heat standard currently means that no buildings constructed under a building warrant from the 1st of April 2024 will have polluting heating systems. And we recently consulted on bold proposals to end the use of polluting heating systems after 2045 and to introduce a minimum energy efficiency standard for all homes. Responses to our plans for a Heat and Buildings Bill, which the Climate Change Committee said could be a template for the rest of the UK, are currently being analysed ahead of confirming next steps. Presiding Officer, climate change requiring everything everywhere all at once, as Antonio Guterres puts it, is why, on top of all of this work, on the 18th April I also announced a new package of climate policies. These included that we will publish a new route map for delivery of approximately 24,000 additional EV charge points by 2030, with support for rural areas and low-income groups, planning an integrated ticketing system for all modes of public transport. In agriculture, taking forward a pilot on methane-suppressing feed products and additives, and this autumn, publishing our route map to 20% reduction in car use, supporting local authorities to take action appropriate in their area. This is just some of what the Government is doing, and is not to mention our biodiversity delivery plan, marine protected areas, land reform bill, our onshore wind sector deal, our hydrogen action plan, and the strategic investment in offshore wind we're currently making, which is worth up to £500 million over 5 years. As I've previously said in the Chamber, the Scottish Government recognises the Climate Change Committee's analysis this year and in 2019 that the interim 2030 target set by Parliament on a cross-party basis is beyond what can be achieved. I was not in Parliament at the time, but I share the view expressed by all parties then that setting an interim target beyond what was believed to be achievable has emphasised the importance of the journey and has helped to accelerate action in the meantime. It's certainly done that. Since 2019, we've launched the world's largest floating offshore wind leasing round. We've moved to ban some of the most problematic single-use plastics. We've restored around 75,000 hectares of degraded peatland, created 4 low-emission zones, deployed the most comprehensive network of public EV charging infrastructure in the UK outside of London, designated 37% of our waters as marine protected areas, and internationally, we've helped to break a 30-year impasse on funding for loss and damage. But just as any good climber will not be fixed on one route to a summit, we must be prepared to try new paths if experience demands it. The summit remains our goal. I will not allow it to be jeopardised by committing to a pathway that is not feasible. That's why I confirmed on the 18th of April that the Government would bring forward legislation as soon as practicable to ensure that our emissions pathway takes us to 2045 on the basis of latest advice from the Committee. Today's statistics reinforce what the CCC have confirmed to us in recent correspondence, namely that annual emissions and targets are highly susceptible to unexpected events. Our route to 2045 needs to be receptive to the non-linear realities of long-term decarbonisation. Consequently, our legislative proposals on new emissions reduction framework will include establishing 5-yearly carbon budgets. As the CCC recently set out to the Net Zero Energy and Transport Committee, annual fluctuations are smoothed within multi-year budgets, which therefore provides a more reliable indicator of progress. We're working with parliamentary authorities to ensure the bill is introduced as soon as possible after recess, and have begun engaging with the convener of the NetSec Committee to support his committee's scrutiny of the bill. Thereafter, we will work towards a next climate change plan, founded on the CCC's advice on a revised pathway to 45 for Scotland. Presiding Officer, we have now reduced our emissions by 50% from the 1990 baseline, and the Government is resolutely focused on the next 50% and to achieving net zero. Thank you.